Well, Jose Suarez pitched for his pitching rotation life on Sunday, and who would have thought he would be the guy that would keep us from getting swept? We're going to talk all about this weekend series. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
No, it's funny. We go from El Demote to El Demente. That was such a great game on Sunday. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, and the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Happy Monday to you, and thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we've been fans of this team for years, going way back, and it's our second season here at Locked On Angels, the only daily Los Angeles Angels podcast out there, Mike, and we're the number one daily Los Angeles Angels podcast, so win-win, right?
It's a win-win. I like it. Let's go.
Hey, on today's show, we are recapping the series over the weekend against the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to get into all three games and talk about each one day by day. We're going to start with Friday's loss, Mike, 2-1. Let's talk about that one.
Tyler Anderson did not look good to start the season. He's only had one really good start against the Oakland A's, and then he's fallen apart. And then on Friday, pitched a heck of a game, John, and that was really the positive that came out of that game. I wasn't too disappointed with a 2-1 loss because I know that the Brewers are actually really good, and we talked about on this pod how it's their pitching that actually has been carrying them so far this season and not their hitting, and they don't do well against left-handed pitchers. And so we had a really good shot because that's everybody in our starting rotation. And so Tyler Anderson pitched really well. He pitched like the guy we expected him to be. 6 2/3 innings, gave up just 1 run, 5 hits, 7 strikeouts. He did walk 3 and had a 35 whiff percentage. And so he just looked like the Tyler Anderson of last season. He was getting ahead with his fastball. He was dominating with his changeup. He had 12 whiffs on that changeup. And Johnny, his velo was up about 1.5 miles per hour across the board on all of his pitches.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's surprising that he had a strong game, Mike, considering umpire Scott Berry, who was the home plate umpire, was absolutely terrible behind. Take a look at this graphic if you're watching on YouTube here. Here is his umpire scorecard. That pink area, if you're watching on YouTube, is the strike zone.
Yeah.
That round nebulous thing that looks like something you saw in biology class in a science textbook, that's the strike zone.
Yeah. Mike, for those on the audio side, 10 of the 37 called strikes were actually balls. And so what we see on the YouTube side is not a strike zone. We see almost like a warped, like maybe you're a little bit high. That's what it looks like, right?
The outline of it is kind of an anchor. If you were to turn an anchor on its side, that's kind of what it looks like.
That's exactly what Scott Berry was in that game, an anchor to both teams.
73% called strike accuracy, 96% called ball accuracy, overall accuracy 89%, overall consistency. So at least he was consistent with his terrible strike zone, 92%. However, when you look at umpire scorecards, you're going to want to see an overall accuracy, usually about 95 or more. So for it to be 89, which is like, hey, 89, a B+. B+ is not good enough when it comes to grading an umpire's performance behind the plate.
Right.
So that was a part of the game that was difficult on both sides, honestly. And
Johnny, I was watching the Sunday night game, Phillies Astros, and just because I'm a Brandon Marsh fan, and so it was cool to see him play. There was a strike called that was high and outside, should have been a ball, and Marsh did something that Carl Ravitch and the play-by-play guys, David Cohn, pointed out. Marsh stepped out, he looked at the ump, and he said, "Is that as high and as far as the strike zone will go?" And the ump said, "Yes." And he went, "Okay." And he stepped back in.
That's why he's got an OPS better than everyone else in the league right now.
Right. And we talk a lot about, and that's a question we get often on this pod, is how do you adjust to that strike zone, right? And what I saw from Brandon Marsh is what the Angels need to do in moments like this. They need to be able to say, is that as low and as far as it's going?
Yeah.
They have to talk to the umpire and obviously do it respectfully because you can't argue balls and strikes. But I think that you do need to step out and ask, is that as low as it goes? Is that as high as it goes? Is that as far as it goes? So that I'm going to have to swing at that. Instead of just guessing, it gives you more of a confidence as to if that pitch is going to be in the zone and if I need to swing at it or not.
Even more head scratching in this game, Mike, besides the umpire's strike zone, was the fact that Aaron Loup came in during a high leverage situation. He got the last out of the inning, came back in to pitch the next inning, and gave up the winning run. Mike, we're going to talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, but there's been a shift in the direction of the team. We'll get into what we mean about that. But this was an example of Aaron Loup coming into a situation that he didn't belong in. Yeah. And you go from a lefty in Tyler Anderson to Aaron Loup, obviously, to get out the last batter of the inning and whatnot. But then he came back. And so I'm just curious as to why you don't see Matt Moore out there or Andrew Wantz or Chase Silseth in that moment. Why go back to Aaron Loup? I don't know if it was a confidence thing, if it was a boosting thing, but certainly didn't do anything to help his confidence because he ended up giving up the winning run in a very tight game. 2-1 is a game that you can look at and be like, okay, I get it. That's baseball. But not when Aaron Loup comes in. That just feels like you failed all the way around, right?
And it happened in the 8th inning. That's why it was so mind-boggling. Why did he come back in? I get that you want to give him confidence, and I get that Phil Nevin seems to be the guy that wants to be the guy that believes in his guys, right? But he got the out in the 7th inning. So
job done.
Way to go, Aaron Loup.
Well
woo, dun, 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 dun. Come on down, right? Like that, fantastic. And then you move on, and you bring somebody else in, and it just didn't seem like it was a smart decision or a wise decision. I don't know why we can see this, John, as fans, and Phil Nevin can't. I know that there's some dynamics we're going to talk about tomorrow on tomorrow's show, but it's just so frustrating because when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time, right? Maya Angelou said that. And so Aaron Loup has shown us who he is. And so I get you want to build some confidence in him, but it's got to be one bite at a time, not one pizza at a time, right?
Yes.
Like it's got to be small steps. And that 7th inning, him getting out of it was fantastic. And then you bring in Moore or Wantz or Silseth. I love having Silseth at the end of this bullpen. I think he actually solidifies it and brings a hard thrower, somebody who throws a few pitches, and somebody who can get some outs. And we saw that on Sunday with who came in right after that. I just don't understand that, and they've got to throw the book away. They've got to throw this guy can and this guy can't and have that be according to the metrics. It's got to be done, and I think what you saw this weekend is just another reason why you can't manage that way.
No, you absolutely cannot. You got to go with a guy who is going to get you the 3 outs in the 8th and the next 3 outs in the 9th, whether that's 2 people or the same person, right? So it just was a mind-boggling decision on Phil Nevin's part to bring in Aaron Loup, and we all knew how that was going to turn out.
Right.
That's the sentiment among Angel fans.
You cross your fingers hoping it won't go bad, and I feel like the Angels management don't do that. They're like, yeah, we'll go with Aaron. He's got it, right? He's got nothing. He has no benefit to this team, and even
no track record. Nothing.
I mean, if it's mop up, I guess, but at this point, it's mop up or DFA. If I'm the manager of this team, if I'm the general manager of this team, because he's hurting you more than he's helping you.
Absolutely. Hey, the Angels start a 3-game series against the St. Louis Cardinals tomorrow at 4:45 Pacific. Patrick Sandoval is on the mound. He's going for his 2nd straight win out there. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you got to do is search Angels. And coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to talk about Saturday and Sunday's game and how Saturday's game got wrapped up in the tungsten arm O'Doyle narrative. And we're going to tell you why it's not that coming up.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all the sugar and calories, you need the best tasting protein bar ever. That's Built. Built Bars and Built Puffs are healthy and tasty. And what makes them so good? Well, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in really great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. They're only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein, so they will fill you up. And you don't have to wait to get a box. For years, we've been telling you to order Built Bars and Built Puffs at Built.com. You can go there right now and order every bar and every puff you want. Or you can head to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. At Walmart, head to their pharmacy section, grab a box of Built Bars. They have 4-bar boxes there, cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puff. They're delicious. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, they have 13-bar boxes there with all of the hit flavors like brownie batter and churro puff. They're all delicious. You'll thank me later. Built Bars, Built Puffs. You got to try this.
And Locked On Angels is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. This is why you need to give online therapy a try at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding. Sometimes we don't know what we want or why we act the way that we do to things, or until we talk it through with somebody. BetterHelp is going to connect you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries. We all need that. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. Therapy is for everybody. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And everydayers, those of you that join us every single day. This week, we're going to recap each of the games. We're playing the Cardinals starting Tuesday, and the game does start at 4:45 Pacific. I love these times. I know they're on the East Coast or Midwest, right? But I love that these times are starting, and then because you and I, we can go to bed early.
That's right.
So the Cards are struggling, by the way. They are not good right now, so this could potentially be another get-right series for the Halos. You know what that means? We'll lose game 1, and then we'll win the next 2. Catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Mike, Saturday's game, the Angels just fell short as they lost 7-5, and here's what was frustrating. Reid Detmers started out this game incredible, going pitch for pitch with Corbin Burnes. You knew it was going to be a difficult game because Corbin Burnes was on the mound. Hey, he's a Halo fan, by the way, so grew up being an Angels fan, said he loved Nolan Ryan, and Jared Weaver. There you go, Weave. How about that? The only podcast that shouts out Jared Weaver, I'd say 9 times out of 10.
Right, yeah.
But Detmers started out striking out the first 5 of 6 batters he faced. He went 4 1/3 innings, 7 runs, 4 earned. We'll talk about that. 3 walks and 6 Ks. Mike, he just had a curveball that he just couldn't seem to locate on Saturday night. Couldn't find where the ump was calling a strike again. That was another terrible game where I think Brandon Drury took a changeup that was 2 balls below the strike zone, and I wasn't sure. I don't think it was Contreras that night, but their other catcher they had brought it up like a foot.
Right.
And it got
and
called
they're still calling it a strike. Yeah.
And so then between the defensive errors, the Halos just unable to turn ground balls into outs, and the umpire's strike zone, I think everything just got to Reid Detmers that night. The point is, the vibe on this team feels unfocused. It feels unfocused on defense.
Yeah.
When there's things that are outside your control, like an umpire strike zone, it really seems to get to these guys. For example, you got Taylor Ward in the outfield, took a bad route to the ball. It seemed like he might have lost it in the lights, of course, according to Mark Gubiza. Rendon booting a ball instead of getting the out. Just a lot of unfocused, sloppy plays out there. Now, on the good side, there was eventually some offense. First, there was Mike Trout, who hit 2 home runs and had 5 RBIs. Before the game, Mike, we saw that Zach Neto was moved up to the leadoff spot. Taylor Ward was moved down to 7th just because he's been struggling so much. And I tweeted and I said, Neto doesn't have his first major league walk yet. And rightfully so, there were some responders who said, well, he did probably have 3 at this point, but the umpires took it away from him. And I said, you are correct. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I said, maybe he'll take a walk in this game, considering he's leading off. Mike, he didn't need to because he got 2 hits and then I think a league leading 7th hit by pitch at this point.
Yeah.
And setting a record for a major league player's first few games.
He doesn't need to walk, John. He just gets hit every time he's up there.
Seriously, man. It's
on base percentage going up.
But it was great to see him because he hit his way aboard and also found other ways to get on board. And so didn't need the walk on Saturday. He eventually did on Sunday. Ohtani has 3 hits. And then here's the thing, Mike, that frustrated me about this one. Rendon, Renfroe, and Drury didn't have any hits in this game. There was a particular moment where there was a lot of, Mike Trout hits a 2-run home run and it's 7-3. Whoop-de-doo, garbage time. And I said, hold on a minute, because right after Mike Trout hits a 2-run home run, both Ohtani and Rendon get on base.
Yeah.
They do a double steal, and they're on second and third with nobody out.
Yep.
And what happens? Renfroe strikes out. Brandon Drury strikes out. Taylor Ward, God bless him, tries to go the opposite way.
Yeah.
Hung up long enough for the right fielder to make that catch. And then in the 9th, Mike Trout adds another 2-run home run to make it 7-5. Mike, this is an entirely different game if they're able to get Rendon and Ohtani home with nobody out and they're on second and third. It's an entirely different game.
Yeah. This is why I don't like the tungsten arm tweets, because this game was tweeted out as, Mike Trout 2 home runs and Shohei Ohtani 3 hits. It was 7-1, and Reid Detmers struggled, and so they started to battle back. But where I really saw this game go south, John, and I'll probably get eaten alive for this, is in the first inning when it was 1st and 3rd with nobody out. And Neto was on and Trout was on, and Shohei hit into a double play. Now, I get he had 3 hits, and I get that, right? And I get that Mike Trout has come through for us.
It's rare that he hits into a double play, too.
Absolutely. But that's the issue that I think a lot of Angel fans are seeing, and they're afraid to say anything because they do get eaten alive, is if Ohtani's going to get a hit, man, I want him to get a hit in the first inning and not later on. If Mike Trout's going to get a hit, I want him to knock in the winning run instead of hitting 2 home runs. And that seems to be the trade-off right now through the first month of this season. I think they're great. I'm obviously a huge fan. I want Ohtani back. I love Mike Trout. But I think that what Angel fans are hoping for is that they would come through in the moments that would actually give us the win instead of scoring runs. And it was that first inning ground ball double play that was so shocking when Ohtani hit it that just killed the rally. And we had Corbin Burns on the ropes and we had Rendon coming up. And so I think that we could have applied the pressure. That's the thing that I'm seeing from this team, is that they're not applying the pressure when the pressure needs to be pressured, right? Like they're not applying the pressure when necessary.
I see.
And they're doing it later on. And so this game wasn't a tungsten arm game where Trout and Ohtani are just carrying this team. This was a game where they were down, and partially down because Ohtani grounded out, and partially down because they just weren't coming through.
You're gonna
I'm going to get creamed. I know I'm going to get creamed.
You can answer the comments on YouTube tomorrow. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
My wife loves me. My kids love me. I think you love me. So I just
not
think
right now. No,
I think that the bottom line to all of this, John, is that Angel fans want these guys, Trout and Ohtani specifically, to come through when the game's on the line. And I think we would all trade Ohtani home run, a Mike Trout home run, an Ohtani almost cycle, or anything like that for bottom of the 8th, bottom of the 9th, and they knock in a run. Or even in the first inning when we have Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns on the ropes. I think that Angel fans, I'll speak for myself, as an Angel fan, I would rather see them make an impact then and go 1 for 4 for the rest of the game.
Sure.
But make an impact when we have somebody really great on the mound on the ropes.
Well, but conversely on that, you get Shohei Ohtani on base and Anthony Rendon on base.
Yes.
And that's later in the game when they do have the chance to come back. And so I hear what you're saying about you want them to meet the moment. You want Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani to meet the moment. I think Ohtani getting on base is meeting the moment.
Agreed.
I think Mike Trout getting on base, or I should say Mike Trout hitting 2 home runs to get this game back in it is meeting the moment. But at that point, it feels like too little too late because you'd rather see them pile on against a Corbin Burns, get him out of the game early, that sort of thing.
Now, let me say, I want Rendon and Renfroe and Drury to meet the moment as well, right?
Because they didn't.
You can't strike out with these guys on base. Make contact.
Right.
Do
At
something.
the very least,
make contact. Move the runners over. And so I don't fault anybody for the loss. I just think that if this offense is going to be clicking on all cylinders, then you need our big guys to come through and meet the moment, but you also need the guys that we've surrounded them with to make contact, for crying out loud.
At very least.
Hit a weak ground ball so that you can move the runners over, or you could at least score a run in that moment, because then a 7-5 game is suddenly 7-6, maybe even 7-7, because they had multiple opportunities, and every time they struck out. They didn't even make contact, and that's frustrating.
I think the big picture here is that a lot of us will zoom out and look at people's lines and be like, man, look at Mike Trout's stats right now. They're incredible. He's hitting this. He's got an OPS of this. But then when you zoom into the micro moment-to-moment portions of the game, look, Anthony Rendon's line right now, it sucks.
Right.
And it's not worth the $35 million or whatever he's making.
Right.
However, when he is up to meet the moment, most of the times this season, he's come through. I posted all over Twitter because I was arguing with people. Somebody said, well, he's only got 3 extra base hits. Yeah, but he's also got a 308 average with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
So that's meeting the moment. Yes, the stat line doesn't look great, but I think what you're saying is we will trade a great stat line for meeting the moment and delivering when it counts. And so my argument was Anthony Rendon's been delivering. I know that the stat line doesn't look great, and we're 29 games in. Like, this guy was off all season last year, basically. I think that he can step up and meet the moment, which he has so far, even though he's not getting home runs or extra base hits, more than 2 or 3 doubles at this point. But those will come. But what I have seen is a stat line that doesn't look great, but I have seen an Anthony Rendon who meets the moment and delivers at the plate when it counts. Now, that doesn't take away the errors that, happened on Saturday that cost Reid Detmers his start. And so that's the trade-off there. Like, come on, dude, you're the star third baseman. Stop booting the ball. Stop throwing it at somebody's, way outside. Don't sidearm it and be lazy like that. Be in the moment and deliver when it matters. So I think at the end of the day, there's the great stat lines, which obviously mean good production, but it's all about meeting the moment and where it counts the most.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure that every player is a perfect fit. And the same is true when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time that you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. They have an eBay guarantee fit, which makes sure that every part fits the right time the first time. And once you do that, then you're good to go. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for the green check mark to know that the part will fit or your money back. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. Get the right parts, the right fit at the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right, Mike, getting into our last conversation of the day, recapping this Milwaukee Brewers season, or series, I should say. The Angels actually salvaged the series by winning 3-0 in a game that looked like the type of game this team should be having. Shout out to King Panda on Twitter, who previously said El Demote instead of El Demente. But now, after Jose Suarez had a great start, he said El Promote.
I love it. King Panda coming through. Angels win this game 3-0, and they do salvage the series, John. And how amazing is it that we had to rely on Jose freaking Suarez?
This is the one game that you would have thought they would have. You look at the lineups, you look at the starting pitchers and stuff, and you're like, well, we're not going to win this game, right? And then you get Jose Suarez going 5 innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, a season high 6 Ks. Mike, he did something very interesting on Sunday in terms of his repertoire. I see you have the stats here. Let's talk about it.
He actually, threw a lot of fastballs, which he's known for, threw almost the same amount of changeups, had a cutter, a sweeper, a curveball, and a sinker. And there was a pitch that he was throwing that people couldn't really figure out. Jeff Fletcher actually tweeted about that. And it ended up being like a version of a slider that was more like a sweeper or a cutter. So
I think they went back and changed some of the sliders
yes,
to a cutter. And
yes,
so he's got 9 cutters there, which was kind of new to his repertoire.
yeah,
And then the changeup, Mike, he was working that
right.
changeup in this game and had a huge swinging strike rate percentage on that. He was locating his pitches much better. I did see some fastballs in dicey places as I went back to look at his live at bats on Baseball Savant. However, he was playing his secondary pitches off of the fastball
Yeah.
very well in
Yeah.
this one. Just overall looked like a much more confident pitcher. Man, I think that we should threaten him with a demotion to the bullpen every
Pitching for
game
your job,
he goes
bro.
out there,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and Matt Weiss's job too, because
Right.
something changed over the last week since we last saw Suarez against the A's. Now all of a sudden he's taken on a really tough team with the Brewers. Where's all the comments that say, well, it was against the Brewers, because the Brewers are actually a tough
Right.
team. And so he
Right.
came out, he showed up and showed out in this one, right?
Yeah, because he's looked terrible, and then he looked fantastic against I think the best team in the National League right now in the Milwaukee Brewers.
And if you go back to the A's game, 7 scoreless innings in a row, because once he figured out what was going wrong after those first 3 disastrous innings, then he went out in the 4th, pitched well, went out in the 5th, pitched well, and then 5 more innings on Sunday. So 7 scoreless since they figured out what was going on with him, apparently.
Angel said that they don't believe he was tipping pitches, but
that's because somebody else noticed it and they didn't want to give credit.
Everybody outside of the org, even Bobby Valentine on the post-game show said, there was something different about Jose, and it was where he was setting up. He was placing his glove and hand in the same spot every single time, and when he was doing that against the A's, if it was a fastball, it was up, and if it was a off-speed pitch, it was low, and so they knew what was coming. The other thing that Jose did good in this game was he located, John.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing that he's really struggled with. I mean, even though he may have been tipping his pitches against the A's,
location still.
Man, he was throwing some meatballs, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was just awful to see. And I think the thing that really is an indicator for Suarez here is that he didn't go through the lineup a third time. He was able to shut them down enough to get to 5 innings. And then when he was about to go through the lineup a third time, he was pulled. And so I think that that's an indication as to how you need to use Jose moving forward. If he's good against a starting lineup the first couple of times, I think it's wise to have somebody else ready in the bullpen and yank him in that 5th, maybe 6th inning, depending on where he's at, because that third time through the order has been devastating for him this year, and not just this year, but in years past.
Yeah, his entire career. Now, Mike, Ohtani hit his 7th home run of the season.
Moonshot.
An actual moonshot that was the highest and the longest hang time that's been recorded in StatCast. I believe on the broadcast they said it was even up there longer than the longest punt in football.
Wow.
In terms of hang time.
What a stat, right?
Yeah.
Is that Matty V? By the way, it was great to have Matty V back.
I like Matty V too.
I love that. Love that.
And then Jake Lamb all of a sudden hits a home run too. He actually got the offense started on Sunday, so that was great. I know Rengifo had an RBI, so that made it 3-0. Then Mike, the Angels, for the rest of the series, or for the rest of the game, they shut out the Brewers. Nobody scored after that for the Brewers.
Right. So Jose Quijada goes on the IL, and then Chris Davinsky gets called up, and he's struggled in the majors. He was once a great Houston Astros pitcher for them in the World Series. He comes in, John, pitches really well. His fastball was about 95, 96, which was up from what he was doing in AAA. His average fastball in AAA was 92.
And then, weird, because the same thing happened with Silseth.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know what's happening when they're coming up. I wonder, you mentioned the extension thing that comes with Aaron Loup and his struggles. I wonder if they're extending. I wonder if maybe and maybe there's a bit of adrenaline. Like, I'm hyped to be in the major leagues, right?
Something different with the mound, a major league mound. It shouldn't be different, but maybe it is. I
also love that it was Silseth, Moore, and Estevez that came in and closed this out. Each 1 inning apiece. Maybe Chris Davinsky is somebody that actually can bring some consistency and some success to this bullpen. Ryan Tepera, my friend, said he watched him down with single A team here locally in San Bernardino, said he looked fantastic and was nobody could hit him. And I said, unfortunately, that's not the case in the major leagues.
He was sitting 92 on his fastball too.
Yeah. And so I wonder what they're going to do with him. But I actually like where the bullpen is right now outside of Aaron Loup. I like who we have, the pieces that we have. I just think that Phil Nevin's got to use them more consistently and more frequently and not be afraid of that. They're so afraid of what happened last year because April was so devastating. The bullpen was so devastating against the league and they did so well. And then May, they completely fell apart and Tepera and Loup have not recovered. I just think that you do have to be careful with these guys and how you use them. But I feel like they've been extra careful. It's like mom's good china that you never eat until like Christmas, right? Like you got to put these guys into the game and utilize them in a really successful way. And despite everything that we've been through this month, John, it feels kind of unreal after all the complaining and throwing fits and Shohei's not resigning and we're 15-14,
right?
15-14 in the end of the month. And you said on this pod, like 500 or better, I think is a great start. And the last time we went to the playoffs, we were 14-13, I think, at the end of April. So after everything, it doesn't feel like we're 15-14, but we are.
Yeah. Mike, San Diego's 15-14. They're sitting right in the middle of the NL West.
Yep.
They have the third highest payroll. We have the sixth highest payroll. They made a lot of moves in the offseason that, said that they were going to be pretty devastating. Mike, the Pirates, of course, have the best record in the National League. A lot of their wins have come against below 500 teams. And for the Angels, we have not played well against plus 500 teams.
Right.
And so even though the first two games, understand Friday felt like a natural baseball game where a 2-1 loss is what it is. Now, maybe if Aaron Loup doesn't come in, the outcome's different. I think about Saturday and how there was an issue with Reid Detmers in his start. Some errors really got to him. But if you think about the fact that there was 3 unearned runs versus 4 earned runs, reality is that's a 4-run game. That's way different than being down 7-1. Right. And then Sunday, they shut out the Brewers with the pitcher on the mound who was most questionable in Jose Suarez. Then they actually have a great game plan for Davinsky, Silseth, Moore, Estevez. Keep it simple.
Yep.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm going to say. Keep
Yep.
it simple, stupid. That's really what the Angels need to do here is keep things simple. Don't complicate things. Don't make those dumb mistakes on the base paths. Try not to make any errors. Play some clean ball. We're 15-14. Probably should have a better record than that. But coming out of April, I think 15-14 is just fine. The road ahead does not get any easier. I know the Cardinals are struggling, but they're really going to have to step up because we've got some AL West rivals coming to town soon, and that's where you really want to see the Angels succeed is against their divisional rivals.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. We've got a day off today. Angels aren't playing, so everybody can take a deep breath. They're back on Tuesday at 4:45 Pacific time. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, follow us on Locked On Angels on Twitter or at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram if you want to keep up with our thoughts during the game. We're always sharing great stuff, always sharing great clips, giving you some insight that we might share on the show or give you a little bit of a preview of the next show or whatnot. So give us a follow there. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show, given the fact that we have an off day today?
So we're going to review April. We're going to look at the good and the bad and the ugly. And so each segment will focus on each one of those things. There's a lot of good. There is some bad, and there's a couple of ugly pieces. And just spoiler alert, one of the uglies is we lost Logan O'Hoppe, and we're all depressed about that. So we're going to review April, talk about the good, bad, and the ugly tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
We hope you'll join us for that conversation. It's going to be a great one. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Man, I am not looking at the comments today. You can take care of that for me right there.
Just skip it.
And it'll be an echo chamber, and I'm just going to go la, 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 la.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.